That's all I need to say, right? I'm about to give you a sales process that's going to help you make 7 figures. I figured that was enough.
You an entrepreneur, I got what you need.
Hey there, my loves. Welcome back to my channel and CPTV, the place where aspiring and emerging entrepreneurs can get the tips, the tools, the strategies, and the actionable step-by-step roadmaps to grow their passions into businesses and their businesses into freedom. If that sounds like you and you want to grow a 6 or 7 figure empire, then you're going to want to subscribe and you are going to want to watch CPTV every single Tuesday, because I am here sharing the golden nuggets to help you actually get to experience that lifestyle of freedom and that amazing life that you want in being your own boss. I am CP Cheryl Perez, and welcome. And today, guys, I am going to do something a little bit different. I'm actually going to talk to you about my consulting business and the 5-step sales process that helped me grow a 7-figure empire for years. And it's pretty easy step-by-step process. And I'm going to show you guys what it is today so that you can take it and implement it into your own consulting or coaching practice that might kind of get you over the hump. So that's a statement in itself, y'all. That's all I need to say, right? I'm about to give you a sales process that's going to help you make 7 figures. I figured that was enough. Let's get to work. Okay, so before we dive into the 5 steps, I just want to make sure that you guys realize a few things, especially if you are selling consulting or coaching services. My entire career and every single business that I've ever started has been consulting or coaching types of services. And that's because that's what I've known. I've always been a knowledge-based sharing and doing for other people. So there's a few things that you got to kind of realize about the idea of starting a consulting business or starting a coaching business. The first thing is that you are selling high ticket services. That means that they are not cheap. And when you're selling something that isn't cheap or that might require a lot more of an investment from an individual or from a company or from a business, whoever your target ICA is, you have to realize that the sales process is going to be very specific. And usually it has to involve some type of human contact. It is going to be very, very difficult for you to just take someone through a digital or online sales funnel and actually get them to make a high ticket purchase. So when I say they need to have human contact, I mean whether you do it through a webinar type of sales, which means a live webinar where you're on there and you're actually talking about the value and you're actually establishing yourself as an expert with that person, or whether it does require kind of a salesperson to be on the phone with someone, you are going to have to go through kind of a sales presentation. And so I want to work with you and talk to you about what I've always done in my coaching and consulting packages and services specifically. Even though I do have direct online products and services, they're of a lower ticket value, so it doesn't necessarily require me to get involved in the selling process of it. But when I am selling my high ticket coaching services or consulting packages, it does require a face-to-face contact. So I want to make sure that you're aware of that. And when you're doing consulting and coaching, you need to realize that your prospect or whoever you're sitting across from expects you to be an expert. That is what they are buying, expertise. So there's a certain level of confidence and instruction and taking charge that comes along with that expectation. Perfect example. If you hire an attorney, you know that attorneys automatically are expensive. You know that you are paying for a professional expertise. And you also expect that that attorney is going to be the one advising you and teaching you and leading you and coaching you. You're not paying $350 an hour to meet with an attorney that comes to you every single time they write a contract and says, could you take a look at this and let me know, what's wrong with it? That's not an expert that you're paying for, right? So you have to establish yourself as an expert, which also means that you have to come across from a confidence level as an expert. Knowing your shit is important when you're trying to be a consultant or a coach. And if you don't feel 100% confident, and if your mindset isn't where it needs to be, you've got to focus on working on that, because any sales process really won't work for you otherwise. I also want you to realize that in consulting and coaching, it is very needs-based selling. That means you are not selling a commodity. You're not selling something that people are going to walk away with, like a vacuum cleaner or a coffee pot, and even nowadays, even with those, it has to be based off of needs, but it's a very needs-based selling process. So that means that you have to spend time uncovering what the needs are of your prospect so that your consulting and coaching services can directly address those needs. And it does need to include some type of automation. When I say automation, I mean, automatic follow-up sequences and continued nurturing of that relationship, because it's high ticket. It does require those people, but it also should include some streamlined efficiency types of practices that will let your prospect sitting across from you know that you are highly engaged in this process. So thinking about those key tips is where I want to start. Let's dive into the actual step-by-step process that I've implemented, and hopefully you can take away some of those things and implement it to grow your own 7-figure empire. Step number 1. My sales process is to set the appointment for the initial needs assessment. Now, this setting of the appointment is always something that we have struggled with. That is in the beginning of kind of going out there. Back in the day, my sales team, which was like 65 people strong, were knocking on doors. We were making a ton of phone calls, and we were trying to get those initial appointments scheduled. Usually the needs assessment is free. You're not charging for it. It's your opportunity to sit down and really listen to the client. That's the whole purpose of that initial needs assessment meeting. And it's designed because, again, this is needs-based selling. So you have to find out the particular pain points of that individual. And you want to make sure that that's done in this initial assessment. Now, one of the things that I've experienced over the years is you can have an assessment with somebody and they may not be the decision maker. You want to try very, very hard to make sure that that initial needs assessment or strategy session or discovery session or needs assessment session, whatever it is with the final decision maker. The person who will then be your end user of the product or service and be the one to actually get the results from you. So you want to make sure that you've scheduled it and that it's with that decision maker. And the entire purpose is to sit down, have a conversation, and begin to listen. That brings me to step 2, y'all. And step 2 is conducting that needs assessment appointment, or that discovery session, or that strategy session, or, that transformation session, whatever you want to call it. The whole purpose of it is to actually conduct it. And when you're doing that conducting, you have to make sure that you are doing less talking and more listening. So during that assessment, I'm usually walking in with letting them guide the discussion, but I always have kind of a needs assessment questionnaire. And it's, questions that are on there that I want to make sure I'm asking and that I'm kind of leading them down the path in. And I want to make sure that during the conversation, I am really uncovering the needs that relate to the product or service that I'm ultimately going to be pitching to them. So I've prepared the questionnaire. It's a standard one that we use. It's ready with some leading questions in it that helps you establish your expertise. So for instance, whatever the initial questions are that you want to help uncover those needs with, I always have some leading ones. Perfect example. When I am working with a potential client on some HR consulting work, and I'm looking at, they're looking to hire or outsource some of their HR components for their actual small business. Then we have a question on our questionnaire that is a very leading question. And the question is, how are you currently handling your ERISA benefits compliance needs? Well, of course, that's a leading question, because 90% of the time when I ask that question, or when someone from my sales team asks that question, the response is, what's that? What's ERISA and benefits compliance? Now, I ask it that way because I want them to say, what's that? That gives me the opportunity to explain the details of what ERISA is, what benefits compliance is, what their obligations as an employer is to be in compliance with benefits, and I get to start teaching and training. That point on that question, I am establishing my expertise. It's a leading question because I already know that 90% of the time, they're not going to have any idea what the heck I'm talking about. But I want to make sure that they ask that, what is that? So that I can explain what it is and establish myself as an expert. You see where during that conversation, it's kind of a give and take. I'm listening a lot, but I'm also asking the questions that allow them to come back with questions so that I can establish my expertise. That needs assessment and discovery session should really be you 70% listening, you 20% kind of jumping in to establish your expertise, and then 10% is actually leading them down what the rest of the sales process is going to look like. Step number 3 in the sales process for consulting and coaching services is the proposal presentation or the actual offer presentation. Now, these can typically happen in 2 different ways. Sometimes this requires a second appointment. So, and that's usually when you are creating a custom package, a really high-end, high-ticket type of package for a person. And you're customizing what that package is going to look like based upon that needs assessment. In those instances, you may have to go back to the drawing board and actually put together a formalized proposal, which I have done a lot of the times, especially if the ticket price, the cost of the package exceeds $15,000 to $20,000, then I'm going back and I'm putting together a custom proposal for them. That would require a second presentation, which I will always schedule before I leave the first presentation. Do not leave the needs assessment knowing that you're going to have to come back with something custom and don't get it scheduled. Why? Because you will be in that trying to get that second proposal scheduled cycle forever and ever. And while it's still fresh, they're still interested, you've just established that relationship, they're hungry for your information, say, you know what? Your needs are so complex that I want to put something custom together for you. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at our schedules now? Because if yours is anything like mine, it will get action-packed and full very quickly. Let's pick a date for us to touch base and I will bring back some options that we can discuss before we move forward. Before you leave the needs assessment, schedule the second meeting so that you can go back and put something custom together. And then you got to come back and run that proposal meeting. The second way that you can do them is if it's not really truly custom and you've already got pre-packaged ideas, go equipped with that to that initial assessment meeting. But you're going to transition from it being a needs assessment into the actual offer or proposal meeting during the same first meeting. So I call that the one call close, meaning I'm getting your needs, I'm prepared with standard packages, I'm going to present that package to you, and in that same one call, I'm going to shut it down. It just depends upon what you've got and what you're working with, whether you need a second appointment or you're going to do it that first time. But the bottom line is you have to do a full-fledged proposal presentation. You have to present your offer, and you have to present that offer or that package or that custom proposal surrounding the needs specifically. Now, I've got a whole sales presentation that I do, and I'm not going to get into that right now, but if you think you want me to do a whole separate training video and walk you through what my sales presentation looks like, please leave a comment down below. I will be happy to do that presentation, but it is very strategic and it focuses on the needs and it kind of goes through step by step, but that's the presentation that you're doing here. You are proposing your offer, you're getting it out on the table, and then you are ultimately going to ask them if they would like to move forward in this particular step. So again, step 3 is that proposal or offer presentation that can either be done in that 1 call or potentially a 2 call format. Now let's talk about step 4, because step 4 is you're either going to close them right then and there from step 3, and you're going to move them right into your sales process. So right into signing up, filling out the application, enrolling, clicking a link, whatever it is, you're going to go ahead and roll them right into that when you get that yes or no. Step 4 is if you don't get the decision right then and there. And I don't want you to feel less adequate or less successful if that happens. We call that in between a yes and a no. And it does happen quite frequently, especially when you're talking about high ticket consulting and coaching services. If you're asking someone to make a decision about something that's going to cost them $5, $6, $10, $15, $20,000, you can expect that they might come back and say, I need some time to think about it. And if they do, there's a couple things that you have to do in moving into step 4. And that's where step 4 actually comes into play. You have to implement a follow-up strategy and drip campaign. I say drip because it's going to be very automated, ideally, where You can automatically put them into a follow-up email sequence. That follow-up email sequence may also include a couple of follow-up face-to-face phone calls from you. So that strategy, that follow-up campaign that you're doing needs to be implemented, but it needs to include things like showing them referrals and social proof as they're reading through that and they're thinking between a yes and a no. Those emails, all that stuff should show them what other clients have felt about your work or your service. It should also continue to deliver relevant content surrounding the needs that you discovered in that needs assessment, giving them access to additional tips and tools to continue to establish yourself as an expert in the field. And it should eventually get to a point where it's asking them to definitively give you an answer, a yes or a no. You do not want people to be in between a yes and a no forever. And I know sometimes people are afraid to just ask for that answer because they don't want to hear the no's, but I'm here to tell you, hearing a no and hearing a yes are the two best things that you can do in a sales process. The worst is not knowing. Then you're wasting time, effort, and energy on following up with someone who never really has the intention on giving you a yes or a no. So a no is really good as compared to an I don't know. And that's really what step 4 is designed to do. You want to make sure you're tweaking and monitoring the effectiveness of that drip campaign. And eventually people's actions will show you where and when they actually decided to say yes to you. So that drip campaign, that follow-up strategy, whatever it includes, figure it out and implement it, because you are going to have a good percentage of folks that aren't going to say yes or no definitively right away. And they need to be kind of tweaked and thought and think about that whole process. And then step number 5, y'all, is to close the sale. Shut it down. Make sure that you are able to give them an easy path to a yes. I actually have a whole nother video that I will link to up here when I am talking about developing your sales process. And this is where you actually lead them down the path of how to sign up, how to get onboarded, and how to begin their service. So I would probably say the closing, onboarding, and service strategy is this step. You want to move forward, get them on board as a customer, make sure that their experience in onboarding is amazing, that you've given them all the support that they need to know what the next steps are, and begin to implement their service immediately. Because again, this is high ticket, this is coaching, this is consulting. They're paying a lot of money and their expectations are going to be really high. Now, if you didn't get a chance to write all those down, because I know I went through them pretty quickly, do not worry. Right below this video in true CP fashion is a freebie for you. It is actually this exact same sales process and a really cool infographic that you can grab. So go ahead, click that link, grab that, like this as well. It don't cost you nothing. It don't cause no pain. And also subscribe. If you subscribe, you'll always know when CPTV is here. So, I mean, yeah, that's it. It didn't seem like a whole lot, right? It doesn't have to be completely complicated, guys. You can build a 7-figure business with those 5 steps. Specifically, when you're doing coaching and consulting, you're selling high ticket services. I'm talking $5, $10, $15, $20, $30,000 packages and programs. You got to implement these 5 steps. But remember, it's all going to be based around you first setting the appointment, finding out your customer needs, selling to those needs, proposing what's the best fit for them from your service and products, making sure that you follow up appropriately, and then getting them sold, onboarded, and serviced. 5 steps, 7 figures, piece of cake. No problem. So that's really it. I mean, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. You can take these steps. You can begin to implement it, especially if you are moving in the direction of coaching and consulting. Love coaching and consulting, guys. It's my thing. And until next time, hopefully make sure you like and you subscribe. Mwah. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.